Congratulations, success, you made it. Welcome to the presentation, Automate and Grow Your Notary Public Business. And if you can see the hashtags at the bottom of the screen, this has nothing, zero, zilch, nada, nothing to do with loan signing because why? You are a Notary Public business, okay? You are not a loan signing agent. You are a Notary Public business. You see the difference? And if you don't, you're going to learn. Because I'm not a loan signing agent coach. Okay, I'm not a notary signing agent coach. I'm not regurgitating information that you can find for free on the NNA website. This is how do you apply systems and how do you grow and how do you automate and how do you systematize your business? How do you remove yourself from the normal day-to-day routines and begin to work on the business? How do you increase productivity? How do you increase results? And how do you measure it? And how do you see it? Okay? This is why you're here. So I bow to you. I thank you. I congratulate you. You made it here. All right? Strap in, buckle up, and let's go for a ride. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be ready to work with me, okay? Now, I titled this How to Grow Your Business. And I think back to when I first started and how I got into the Notary Public profession and what my goals were at that time. And if I was on the track to achieving these goals. And then I'm going to tell you a story about how I found out that, you know what? This is a job, right? You get into Notary Public profession because most likely another loan signing agent, notary signing agent introduced you to signing loans. So you thought it was a good idea. You wanted to have your own business, right? You like the idea of creating your own schedule and then also working on your entrepreneurial goals. So you got your notary commission, right? And then usually one of two things happen. You either go heavy loan signing or you go the direction of a notary public business. And I put loan signing slightly ahead because that's typically where most people end up going. And then what they mistakenly do, unintentionally do, they give themselves another job and then they go and searching for more jobs, more assignments from signing services and title companies. And that's their way of scaling. That's their way of growing. However, on a notary public business side, what you do in order to scale is you start to automate. You begin to remove yourself from the actual business and working and emphasizing how the business becomes more productive. Okay, so when I first got into this, I asked myself, what is my business? When I was heavy loan signing, I asked myself, what is my business? And I want to ask you that question. I wanted to ask myself, is my business just about attracting more signing services? Is my business just standing out in a crowd for 1,000 people, raising my hand while the title officer stands on the stage waving a refinance package, and then whoever takes the lowest amount gets the win? Is that my business? And is that how I scale it? Something didn't sound right about that. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to get better at the business. All right. The more I heard people say, go and sign up for more services, go and sign up for 100 more services, I said to myself, that can't be a business. And then they told me, well, you need to get better at the docs. You need to get better at prepping and get better at sorting and become more efficient at the docs. Then I told myself, you know what? That sounds like job training. That's not a business. So it was very hard to look myself in the mirror and admit that. And some of you guys may be admitting that right now. Okay. So what I wanted to do was stop myself from tripping. Okay. I wanted to stop myself from saying, I want to work 14 hours a day. I want to work 12 hours a day, back to back, printing documents on the phone, on emails with title companies, waiting to the last minute, not getting paid, maybe getting paid 41 days later, all so that I can get a crack at a $10,000 a month, right? Because I saw that on a video somewhere, right? Misleadingly. And then what? After you run yourself over and over and over again, and then you put yourself through all of this turmoil because you're trying to sign up for more services, you finally hit your goal. You finally make that elusive dollar amount that you were trying to go for. And then what? the next month, you have to do that same level of work, that same amount of running around, that same feeling of fatigue and tiredness and missing out in order to make that elusive dollar amount that you were trying to get, right? Wrong. That's not a business. That sounds like a job that you have to do overtime, okay? Listen, if you wanted to make a certain dollar amount, you could do it with the math, knowing how many assignments you need, knowing how much you need to travel, knowing the dollar amount that you need to accept. You could do this. All right, you can get any dollar amount, but you got to understand that's a job. Okay, that's not a business. That's done through working overtime. All right, and then asking for a raise. Hopefully, that the title company gives you that, and that's the result that you're going to get. However, when you are running an automated scheduling system, an automated phone or voice assistant that's taking all of your calls, and then an automated scheduling voice and a lead generated system, those tasks are completely removed from your day-to-day responsibilities. So basically, you can just schedule a meeting with another person. Yes, you are a notary, but basically, at the end of the day, you are just scheduling a meeting with another person. And then, best of all, you get paid. And even better than that, you get paid in advance. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you are ready to do some work and ready to get going and then start implementing the steps that you can grow to your greatest potential and you can really get back to your life and let this thing run on autopilot in the background. Just accept assignments whenever you're ready. Accept assignments whenever you have availability in your schedule that's predetermined ahead of time. And I'll show you exactly how to do that, okay? So the question that you have to ask yourself is, if you wanted 5 more calls per day, which roughly goes out to about 32 more calls per week, and then 130 more calls per month, it could be up to 150 calls per month, somewhere in that range. How would you handle that, right? I hear a lot of notaries who talk about, yeah, I wish I could just get more people to call me. I just want my phone to ring more often. Okay, let's say your phone rings 3 times a day. Now, if they ring 5 more times, which is a total of 8, how would you handle that? What would you do? What steps would you take in order to accommodate that increase in volume? I want to answer this question because you may not have the answer. There is an answer, however. There is, in fact, an answer. Before we answer that question, I have a question for you. The question is, how do signers determine that you are the right one for them? This is a question that you have to consider. How does a signer determine that you are, in fact, the right notary public for them? Because this signer, this customer, this client of yours, or what I like to call supporters, this person has a question for you. Now, what is that question and how do you answer that question? So first of all, we got to figure out what that question is. That question is not, however, how much do you charge? From a customer's perspective, you are thinking that I can't overcharge this person too much money because they won't select me, which is correct. But that is taking the assumption that the question the customer is asking you is how much do you charge? Yes, that is oftentimes a lot of questions that people will call you with. However, that's not truly what they're asking. Nor are they asking when you open your business hours. They don't even want to know your contact information. The number one question they really want to ask you is not about money, not about your availability. The number one question they are asking is, when can you come? Because if you cannot come to my house, to my office, to my favorite Starbucks location, then the price doesn't matter, does it? If you cannot come to my home, to my office, my favorite Starbucks to sign my documents, then your hours do not matter, does it? If you cannot come to my home, my office, or my favorite Starbucks, my favorite coffee shop, my favorite pizza place, or the hood of my car, wherever you sign these documents, none of that matters. Your business card, your experience, your precision, how many loans you have closed, nothing matters unless you can tell me confidently that you can notarize my document. And you can only notarize my document because, well, you can come and you can meet me, and then you can facilitate the stamping and the signing of my document. So this is the number one question that you have to answer. This is the number one question you must absolutely answer first before you can even move forward in the customer journey. Can I even come to your house? Can I meet you? Can I actually get to you? And then you can pay me. And then I can stamp your document. Availability is the question that you must answer. You must convey this availability to this signer, to this caller, to this borrower, to this supporter, this client, whatever you want to call this person. You have to determine that I can come and I can meet you. So availability is number one. So here's a picture of me on my porch. All right. Sundays, sometimes on Mondays, but usually on Sundays, I sit on my porch and then I have my schedule already planned out. So you have recurring events in your life. You go to school, you go to work, you have play dates with your kids, you have barbecues, you go to church, you have charity groups that you meet up with. Maybe you're in a sorority. Whatever you have to do and you do it on a recurring basis, then do that. This is your life. You garden on Monday mornings, you water the grass on Saturdays, whatever it is that you do, continue doing that and let this automated notary business operate itself on autopilot in the background so that when someone calls you, because when you look at this picture and you see the white, that's all business hours. Okay. No, I'm not open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and neither are you. So stop telling people that. Don't tell people your business hours. Just tell them that, hey, you want me to come? I'm available at 12 o'clock on Tuesday. And if you need a notary at that time, then I can come and do that. 100% guaranteed. The red, however, is my recurring events. As you can see, I do have a job. A lot of notaries do have second jobs, or they have third jobs, or maybe you have a full-time job. Me, I work part-time, but at the same time, this notary business runs on autopilot so that I can get back to my regular life and things I do on a normal basis, and then I can go to work, and then I can pick up appointments in the interim. So these are the schedules that you have to set up for yourself so that the notary business that you have on autopilot can communicate and read it. And I show you how to do this. You can predetermine your availability. Thus, for when someone selects you and they want you to come and help them, they're always going to select the time when you are what? Available. Because you've only displayed, you've only given them times when you can come, right? So let's move on to this. The notary business is a very popular business nowadays. Since the pandemic started and the shelter in place was implemented, a lot of people have decided to stay at home, and rightfully so. I hope you are being safe, and at the same time, you got to get your business done, got to get your work done. So a lot of people have jumped into the Notary Public profession, and they've done so under the guise of a loan signing agent. But let me bust out some myths, okay? Let's get warmed up, okay? A notary public must perform loan signings. That's myth number one. No, you do not have to perform loan signings. I probably do 1 or 2 loan signings per month. That's it. That's it. Because there's still people who need disclaimer waivers signed. They need birth certificates signed. They need power of attorney signed. They need their estate plan updated. They need to have temporary guardianship handed over to their parents. There's so many, they need a liquor license signed. There's people who have so many needs that require the notary to come and verify their identity and then also to witness their stamp. So you do not have to do loan signings. The second myth, not all loan signings take 1 hour. You're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, I can do it in 40 minutes. I can do it in 30 minutes. Wrong. You can probably do it, but at the same time, you did not account for the travel. You didn't account for the printing. You did not account for the sorting out the documents. nor did you account for the communication and the emails and the calls back and forth with the title companies and the signing services. You didn't account for the travel. You didn't account for standing in line at FedEx. There's all these other aspects to loan signing that you have not accounted for. And that is eating up into your most precious resource, which is what? Not currency. Your most precious resource is time. The next myth is that loan signing is long term. Now, this is my personal opinion because this may not be the case with you. However, when I looked around and I searched for people who had been loan signing for greater than, let's say, I don't know, 5 years, there weren't that many. And then I went a little bit further and said, how many loan signing agents have been around strictly 10 years doing loan signing? Even fewer. And as you can imagine, the longer I go, the fewer and fewer people there were. Of course, there are people who are paralegals, maybe they're attorneys, maybe they are real estate agents, and they get into other professions and they used to do loan signing, but they quickly realize after 6 months, they quickly realize after a year, this is a job. So they got out of it and they used that experience to propel themselves on and springboard into another profession, which is perfectly fine. You do whatever you want to do. But that told me something. It gave me a look into the future that this is not a long term. Okay. And the last myth, among many, is that you make your own schedule. And in fact, that's a myth. You do not make your own schedule. What you really do is set your schedule around the times that a loan signing service or a title company has given you, right? Isn't the normal course that you sit in front of your computer or you wait in front of your phone and then someone reaches out to you? And then what happens? You tell them, listen, I can take this assignment because you've already reviewed it. You looked at the signing. You say, well, it's on Tuesday. It's at 11:30. It's 152 pages. It's near my house. And then also it pays me $90. So that culmination is the effect that you get once you say, this is worth my time. Matter of fact, you probably do it in reverse order, to be perfectly honest, right? You probably look at the price first and then you determine whether or not it's worth my time, right? A lot of people do that. But what I'm saying is you're not making your own schedule. No, you're actually that Tuesday at 12:30 or whatever time it is, you're on someone else's schedule. And remember, you started a business, right? A business to make your own schedule. And in fact, you're not on your own schedule because, yes, you have a job. So who am I? Why am I qualified to tell you this? Why am I qualified to educate you on this? Well, I was an athletic trainer. I still am an athletic trainer, but what I'm saying is I was fired. I was terminated. Yes, that dream job that you were thinking about, that you had for so long, no more. So you've got to do something else. The next thing I did was I drove Lyft. Now, I loved it because not only did I learn more about the city that I was living in and the surrounding areas, but I got a chance to talk to people. It really gave me a pulse about what was going on. I saw the really nice homes that were being closed on. I got a chance to drive through the nice properties and then get a chance to see about the people who were around and really talk to people and really understand what it is that people are looking for. Great. And then also got very organized. My first introduction into entrepreneurship, right? The bookkeeping, right? Let's not even talk about that. But after that, I became commissioned. I became a notary. I became a business minded individual who really devised a plan that said I would drive to my appointments and then I would perform my signings and then I would drive back. So therefore, my entire travel was being uh, accounted for in terms of, you know, expenses and taxes. So after that, for about 4 months, I got back into my profession again, right? But at the same time, I wanted to continue growing my notary public business, doing my profession, and driving Lyft. Three things all at once. So how was I going to juggle that? My situation became so unstable. My schedule had to be systematized, right? I had to apply some processes and make sure that I had this under control. And these were the problems I had to overcome. I had to solve these, every single one of them. And I did it. And you can do it too. Okay? So let's discuss how this works, right? This is the reason why you got in here. You got in contact with me, or you heard from someone else that this was a system that you needed to hear about. So this is it. Let's talk about it. So let's start with this. There's three questions that you have to answer. First, most people always ask me this: how do I get more calls? That's usually the number one question I get. How do I get more leads? Where do you go to advertise? How do you market yourself? But what I'm asking you is think a little bit deeper than that. And this is important. It's critical that you think a little bit deeper than how do I get more calls? Because that's really the third question you should be asking. Okay? If you come to me and you ask me, well, hey, Tech, how do you get more calls? What do you do to get more people to call you? I'm going to say, wait, that's the third question you should be asking. The second question you should be asking, or the question before you ask me how to get more calls, is how? How do I use the tools that I have available at my disposal rather, to close all the callers? That's the second question you should be asking before you ask, how do I get more calls? You got to use the tools that you have to close the callers. How do you use these tools? And then there's one more question before that, which is, what do I need? What are the tools that I need? So remember, in that order, before you ask, how do I get more calls? First, you got to ask yourself, what do I need to make sure I convert all these callers? How do I use those tools that I need? And then I get more calls and I have everything I need in order to close every single time somebody calls my phone. You see how that works? If every single time your phone rang, it was an automatic sale, it was an automatic conversion, wouldn't it make sense that you would get all the tools in place in order to get that done? Because again, if 150 more people just all of a sudden called your phone per month, what in fact would you tell them? Well, number one, I have the mentality that you never, ever lose the lead. And you should too, because an experienced notary, my friend Cam, once told me, never lose the lead. I'll never forget this story. I'm driving down the freeway, or actually it was an on-ramp, and I took the call because I was very desperate for calls. I wanted to help every single person that called me. This is very early on in my Notary Public career. And then this is the situation that you might find yourself in. So the person called me for a power of attorney. This is the first power of attorney I ever got, right? Because I was so used to getting loan signing agents or loan signing appointments. So somebody called me for a power of attorney. I didn't know what to tell them. So I immediately called Cam and I tried to get a referral. I tried to at least get something from this caller because obviously they need a notary. And although I may not be able to help them, I can refer them to somebody who could. And I hung up and I said, listen, I'll call you back, which is never a good thing to do. You want to help that person while you got them on the phone. Otherwise, you're going to call someone else. I called Cam. She said, can't do it, but don't lose the lead. Right? It was a text message, right? But what I did was I tried calling her back and saying, listen, I can help you. I can help you do this. They're like, all right, I found someone. If some reason they don't come through, then I'll call you back. But this is the approach that we take. Never lose a lead. You can help every single person that calls you. Most people have never even dealt with a notary before. They don't really know. They don't exactly know what it is that they need, okay? They call you because someone told them that they need to go get a notary done. They need to go get a signature for this page and a stamp for this page. So, and then when they come back with that document signed and stamped, they can have access to whatever it is that they're going after. You see what I'm saying? Some people really know and they understand what a notary does and what a notary is. So it's not a back and forth negotiation, so to speak. But overwhelmingly, that's not the case. Some people just know that there's a word notary on their piece of paper and that the bank or the hospital or some government agency told them they got to go get the sign. That's how they end up in front of you. That's how they end up calling you, or that's how they end up on your website, because this is called lead generation. And you never, never lose the lead. All right. Okay, so this is what I did. As I began to get more and more business, as I began to grow and become more and more active, essentially what I would do when people called me was I would take information over the phone, right? I would take their names, take their contact information, take their location, take the type of documents, all this information, and then I would email them a confirmation, right? With an invoice attached. That's how I would get paid. Very sloppy, very unorganized, but it's all I did. It's basically all I knew, right? And then a guy named Tiger Toledo, you may have heard of him. He came up with this $250,000 call script. It's called. I call it 100% conversion call script because it was fantastic. It taught me that I needed to create an intake form. I needed to create a way that this person could give me the information rather than me being very unorganized about it. So I created a Google form, and this was free. Google Forms are free, and you can create these intake forms that were very specific to your clientele. Also, because I have a medical healthcare professional background, I'm very familiar with intake forms. The first time you go and see your doctor, go see your provider, they usually give you a patient questionnaire. You complete it, they read it, and then they ask you all the hard questions after they get all the easy questions out of the way. So that's the approach that I took. That's the exact way I designed it. So whenever I got a call, rather than writing down as I'm driving or as I'm shopping with my wife or as I'm out having fun, enjoying myself in the backyard or I'm washing my car, instead of stopping what I'm doing, dropping everything and taking notes, I would just redirect them to my intake form. That information was then conveyed to me via email. I copy pasted that email, sent it to them for confirmation with an invoice attached. Does that make sense? Very good. I hope you're following me on this. Now, what I also learned and what I also began to evolve was Andre C. Hatchett, who's the notary extraordinaire of the Notary Business School. Again, these are business schools, business minded individuals. Tiger Toledo, Andre C. Hatchett, thank you, salute. Andre C. Hatchett, his notary business school is predicated on the foundational principle, which is get paid in advance. Now, this is a business principle that is not being spoken about throughout the notary community, but I thank him so much for introducing me to this concept because what I did was using the Google form, using the intake process, I began to give specific emails and rather than be double booked most of the time, because I became more and more busy, what I would do is give the option, give the option to the signer to confirm their appointment by paying in advance or to reserve their appointment and then they could pay me later. Okay? That was the two options that every single signer was given, and overwhelming. Over a course of time, most people wanted to pay in advance. So that's how I knew. That's how I knew it's time to automate. So the next step in my process was to complete the automation. Now, what do I want to ask you now? What do I want to talk to you about as far as the scheduling process? How did I know? How did I know it was time? How did I know that this was very possible? Well, numbers don't lie, do they? And here are the numbers that I have to prove it. So if you look closely at the top pie chart, you can look at the number of signatures that were on the documents that most people approach me with. All right, this may not be the case with you, but that's not important. What's important is that you have this information and you know that people are coming to you with requests for not what type of document it is, but the number of signatures. So that's one piece of information. The number of signatures, that's what's going to determine what? How much you charge. So overwhelmingly, you look closely, 74% of my signers came with 1 to 2 signatures on their documents. Now, what does this information tell you? This information could tell you that, well, I should probably charge the majority of my customers with prices that reflect 1 to 2 signatures. Now, I saw it the opposite. And I'll say this, because fewer people wanted 3 to 4 signatures or 5 or more signatures, and then there's some people who just don't know, like I said, what I did was because this was the majority of uh, customers that I saw, this was the lowest priced document. And it should make sense because, well, there's the fewest amount of signatures. Most documents only require a few signatures, but because the volume is so much over and over again, this allowed me to rack up in about a 6-month period over 198 or 200 uh, appointments. And that is volume, that is information, that is vital data that you can take and you can start to apply it. Now, if you look at the bottom pie chart, there's a lot of information that you can take from this. But the one thing I want you to point to is, I want to point in your attention is the blue, which reflects notary witness, and then if you look very closely, there's another light blue at the bottom that says general notarization. Now, if you follow me for any amount of time on Instagram, then you know that I am strongly against the term general notarization. There actually is no such thing as a general notarization, and you know that because people don't call you asking for general notary. So you should never talk about general notarization. But this is a confusing word, and if you think about it, this is exactly with what I started because I was taking advice from other long-time agents, right? Not business owners, and I quickly switched it to notary witness. But these two combined equals to about what? Ah, you see the two? General notarizations, notary witness, that's about 54, 55. Plus 15, which is about 70%-ish, right? And then what does that coincide with? Exactly. So I knew that most people who came to me wanted basically the same thing. All I had to do, they come to me with this information. So now if I give it to them or if I present them with what it is they're looking for, right? I have what it is they're looking for. I can accomplish what it is they're looking for. Now all I have to do is set up the payment way. Let's set up the gateway, set up the channel, set up the apparatus for them to be for them to confidently know that this person can get what it is that they can accomplish or get done what it is that they're trying to get done. Second piece of information I want to show you real quick, and before I show you exactly how this works, is this time chart. This was very interesting because if you look closely, it tells you what? If you look closely, it tells you what? It tells you that most appointments were scheduled right in the middle of the day. Now, this shouldn't be surprising to you, but what should be surprising to you is how many people wanted appointments that were really late and how many people wanted appointments that were really early, right? Listen, you are not a 24-hour notary, 7 days a week notary, 365 days a year notary. You're not. You can say that on your website, but you're lying. And you should stop. Because if someone called you at 2 a.m., you're not going to drop everything. Hell, you're not even going to answer your phone because they what? They didn't call first or they didn't book an appointment first. That's the reason why most notaries get away with saying that 24 hours, 7 days a week, because there's a caveat. It says by appointment only, which basically means, and again, from a notary standpoint, you may not think this, but from a customer standpoint, this is absolutely true. By appointment only, you know what that really means? By appointment only really means if I don't have nothing else going on, and then I'll think about helping you. You see, if you called your favorite Starbucks and they told you that you needed to make an appointment ahead of time and then they would only help you if they didn't have any other customers, you would say, you know what, this is not a business or it's not a very good business. And that's exactly what you are doing. So I encourage you to stop that immediately, right? But other than that, you know that another piece of information that you can take from this is that if you do have a part-time job or if you do work other businesses and other side hustles and you have other projects, well, you know when the majority of your work is being done, and then you have the afternoons or evenings or mornings for yourself. So that's just another sidebar, but it's very important that you know that information. Now, lastly, what does this graph tell you? This is about identification. If you read the question, it talks about whether or not you have an ID. Now, if you look at it, overwhelmingly, people have their driver's license, their passport. They have some form of ID that can tell me that they are who they say they are. And that's number one, right? If you don't have any ID, well, you have some options and you can go get a witness. But ultimately, if you have ID, I can help you. But again, if you look at it from a statistician standpoint or a data analysis standpoint, well, what about this people? What about this 7 here, this 3.5%? What about these people? You know what this tells me? Because when you get to someone's appointment and you get to their house or their office, they don't have an ID. Because did you ask them? Did you ask or confirm whether or not they had a valid form of ID? So this is how you protect yourself. And then when you talk about what Andre C. Hatchett says and getting paid in advance, this person doesn't have an ID. You don't feel as bad, right? You didn't travel 45 minutes for them to say, well, you know what? I have a picture of my ID on my cell phone, and I thought that you can take that. No, 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 sir. I explicitly asked you, do you have and are you able to produce a valid form of ID? So overwhelmingly, it doesn't happen, but you know what? It only takes one time, and it does happen. And when it does happen, you're going to wish you had this clause in place, and you're also going to wish that you had gotten paid in advance so that you can walk away and say thanks, but no thanks. I'll refund you a portion of your money, but I'm keeping it because you made me travel this far, and you know we don't have an ID, my friend. Come on, how are you going to play like that? So, other things that made me uh, refine and improve my intake process when you start talking about getting information and why you can automate. Well, these are details that signers want to convey to you so that they can specialize or highly customize their appointments. Contact me when you get to the lobby. That means let me know that you are on your way or let me know when you have arrived. So, can we do it on the porch? All right. So, these are little points that I include in the intake form. All right. Or what I call the patient or the customer questionnaire. And this helps to give your signers the best experience possible. So they want to sign in the backyard due to COVID. I'm free today after 1 currently, or tomorrow after 12. No specific time matters. Time for notarizing. This is for notarizing mortgage modification. Everyone has a request. Everyone has some special request, and they should because these are specialized documents. All right, and this is basically another way to help improve the process for your signers, and it really works because this is direct feedback. Right, it's really good to get feedback from your customers because you can put it into practice in real time. They can tell you something that works really well for them, and then you can try it on the next person and see if it works really well for you. All right. So lastly, I want to talk about overcoming your biggest roadblock. Now, what are your roadblocks when you talk about automating and growing your notary business? First of all, you've got to answer every call. You've got to answer your phone because if you don't answer your phone, then how are you able to help anybody? So, number one, you got to get a voice assistant. You've got to have some apparatus in place that makes sure you answer the phone every single time. How many times have you done a notary appointment and then the person says, hey, you're the fourth, fifth, or the 16th person that I've called? And that's only because no one else answered their phone, or they left a voicemail and no one returned, or they went to someone's physical location and then again they were closed, or the notary was on break getting lunch at Subway, right? The next roadblock you have to overcome is intake forms. You have to redirect your signers to a intake form so that they can give you their information. You can take information over the phone, you can have them text it to you or email it to you. That's sloppy. That is a very unorganized way of going about it because mistakes happen. If you take notes while you're driving and you're eating a sandwich and having a drink at the same time, chances are you're going to miss somebody's phone number. You're going to miss their address. And then you're going to show up to the wrong house, knock on the wrong door, and who knows what's going to happen. The next roadblock you have to overcome is basically facilitating the smoothest transaction. And what that means is getting paid, okay? Getting paid. Make it easy for somebody to pay you. The tougher you make it, the more difficult and challenging you make it, the less likely they're going to pay you. And matter of fact, that is a good way to lose trust when the payment processes do not work. So the question I have to ask you, and you have to answer this, right? You want to effectively grow and automate your Notary Public business, but the question you have to answer is, how can you handle 130 more calls per month? How can you use technology to automate and to increase productivity so that you can handle 130 calls per month? The answer is you have to use technology. What you're using now isn't working, and it's making you more frustrated, and you're becoming frightened. You're becoming afraid because what you thought was working isn't working quite as well as you thought it was. But no worries, because we're going to put all the pieces together, and I'm going to show you how to implement a lead generation assistant, a voice assistant, and then ultimately a scheduling assistant. So on the right side, what you have is what I would do if I had zero money. If I had no money at all, this is what I would do. I would create a website, or I would have a website, usually a free one, Squarespace or Wix. I would create a Google Voice number rather than a second dedicated, committed business phone. I would increase my my ability to track my movement, which is done with a lot of people use Notary Gadget. That's fine. You have to pay for that. But what I'm saying is how you would do it for free. You would use an expense tracker versus an expense tracker that costs you. Okay, I personally use Hurdler, great app. Also, if you wanted to put all these pieces together, again for free, do what I did. Use Google Forms as your intake. If you want to step it up and use a fully automated process, Calendly works tremendously well, incredibly well. It's powerful. It's remarkable how powerful it is and how underutilized it is by notaries. I would set up a payment gateway using Stripe, Square, PayPal, and I would also utilize the power of Google My Business, which also is free. But last but not least, you gotta have a device that allows you to have unlimited data, unlimited text, because you're gonna be talking a lot. Okay, people will call you. Your phone will ring, and if you're busy and you can't answer the phone, then you've got a ton of missed calls. Okay, I would reply to those missed calls with text messages, and that wouldn't always be the case because, again, I was already busy and I just missed a call, and that person by the time had already found someone else. You just missed out on business, my friend. But there is a solution to that. Is24 is an automated voice assistant, and it does a remarkable job of redirecting your callers to your intake form so that they can put on your schedule their time that they want to see you, and then they can pay you, and then you can show up at their house. Okay, everything together. This is what is included. Get a website. You have a website, presumably, but if not, that's okay. We can still work with you. Obviously, it's better to have a website. That way you seem legit, okay? Every legit business, right? Business has a website. You included with that is the 3-question quick script. See, and what you do is you answer your phone, you answer your text messages, you answer your thumbtack inquiries, or you answer your Google My Business, whatever it is, you answer with your 3-question phone quick script, right? You have your professional greeting, right? Right? Because you have a dedicated, committed business phone, you have a professional greeting. You're not answering your personal cell phone with your business greeting, are you? Or you might. Hopefully you're not. But if you are, then stop. Right? Secondly, use a quick script. When someone calls you, they're going to tell you every single piece of information that they want to know. They're going to tell you all the information about their cousin and their aunt that's in the ICU, and their best friend who said that they're the greatest. Stop them right there. Use 3 questions. If you follow me on Instagram at Dr. Tech Music, right? I demonstrate this every single time on every single call. It doesn't matter what they're calling you for. Use the 3-question quick script, and you get immediately to the point. And by the point, I mean you are redirecting this person to your schedule. Now, if they call you and you don't answer the phone, well, good thing you have a automated voice assistant, and I use what's called Is24. This has the capability of sending text messages. These text messages are nicely set up by a phone tree. A phone tree that basically says if you live in such and such city, press 1. You live in such and such area, press 2. And it has the capability of sending a text messages to your phone, or that text message is actually a link to your calendar so that they can schedule you. I show you how to set it up. I show you how to use the top 3 most important documents that you see on an average. And then I show you how to input all the links and all the phone numbers, and you do it correctly. And it's not confusing, or it leaves your client, your customer, misunderstanding what it is that they're trying to do, because this information will be new to them. But that text message is what's powerful, and it redirects them to, yes, Calendly. Calendly is a remarkably powerful, very underutilized service that Notary Publics are sleeping on. I show you how to set up Calendly so that it reflects what works in your business. We get on the phone, we talk. We decide that yes, you live in Atlanta, you live in Philadelphia, you live in Indiana, you live in Texas, you live in Miami, you live in Seattle. It doesn't matter where you live. You can be in California, and I'll show you exactly how you want to set up your Calendly so that whenever someone goes to your schedule from your website or from your your phone call, or maybe it's from Thumbtack, or maybe it's from Google My Business, you send them a link to Calendly, and it tells them exactly what they need to do, the date that they need to go, the time, and then most importantly, how you get paid. Okay, the integration with PayPal and other payment gateways is very crucial to getting paid in advance. And overwhelmingly, you'll be on your way to a fully automated system that runs on autopilot in the background. Now you can get back to your life. You can no longer be afraid. You don't have to be apprehensive about answering the phone, and you don't have to be scared or intimidated about asking to get paid in advance. And let's see how quickly your life improves. Watch how gradually you become more confident on the phone when you know that every single person that you call, every single person that you talk to can be of your benefit, right? They can help, you can help them, and you can help them accomplish what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So right now, I want you guys to watch this 7-minute video and see how all of this stuff gets put into action. If you follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. Like, follow me. Really listen to the information and understand how deeply I talk about this stuff. You can hear it. This was a problem that I had. This is how I overcame it, and this is how you can do it too. Watch this video and be right back.